Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us for our presentation of Using a Virtual Assistant in the Cloud. My name is Michael Griffin, and I'm the President and CEO of ClientLook CRM. I'll be hosting our session, which we anticipate will run about 30 minutes. Today we're going to introduce you to the concept of using a virtual assistant. You'll hear about the pros and the cons. You'll see real-life examples of how to use a virtual assistant. And I'll even provide tips on how to find someone that's both easy and cost-effective. Here's our agenda for today. Our presentation is broken down into 5 basic sections. First, I'll present what I call the takeaway points. These are initial thought-provoking themes designed to help you get the most out of this presentation. Next, we'll cover the common questions concerning a virtual assistant and explain exactly how this all works. Next, I'll present some of the pros and the cons of working with a virtual assistant so you can decide if this type of setup is right for you. We'll look at specific examples of the technology application and services that are VA friendly. This way you'll gain an understanding of the type of role a VA could have in your business. And lastly, I'll show you some ways to find a virtual assistant and give you an update on a search I set up in my local market here. Okay, so let me start with takeaway points. These are the basic themes that I always like to present up front to give you some perspective on everything you're going to see today. These are also the concepts that I hope you take to heart, even if you come away with nothing else. I'd like you to think back to when you started out in this business and consider the way you spent your day. What kept you busy? How did you value your time? And in hindsight, what tasks actually turned out to make you money? Now flash forward to today and think about how you spend your time. Presumably your focus has changed. Ideally, you've identified those things that give you the greatest return. You've eliminated the tasks that were unproductive. In a manner of speaking, you've found your own highest and best use. Now, we've heard that term used frequently to describe an asset such as land, but I think it applies just as well to you. The idea of using the cloud and a virtual assistant is designed to help you realize your highest and best use. One challenge I'll give you today is to identify those pursuits that give you the highest return, while at the same time identifying those tasks that you need to delegate in order to achieve your goals. If you could spend your business day without any distractions or administrative responsibilities, you're just a pure deal maker now, how would that feel? I'll bet you could build better relationships, provide better client service, and dramatically increase your productivity. The trick is being able to outsource everything you can, from creating presentations to logging CRM updates, to allow you to become that focused deal maker. One of the most important criteria for achieving your highest and best use is to outsource all those tasks that are certainly necessary for the maintenance of your business, but could be delegated to someone else. Using some of the examples you'll see today, I want you to come up with your list of all the things you could go to try and outsource. Now, there's one critical component to success of everything I'm going to tell you today, and it's a simple concept. It's simply that you must move your business online. For anything other than video editing or maybe graphical design, desktop software has no role in your business. Neither does a VPN or any of these remote access or online hosting services that make you feel like you're in the cloud when you're really faking it. I cannot urge you strongly enough that you should not purchase a desktop application for which there is a viable online alternative. And if you're stuck with what I call legacy technology anchors like desktop software, then run, don't walk, to find a cloud-based alternative. Unless your business communication, file storage, and CRM are online, then you can't take full advantage of a virtual assistant or any of the whiz-bang technologies I'm going to show you today. Worse yet, your business is at risk since you're not keeping pace with the changes in technology and our industry. Your productivity will suffer, your income will drop, and your competition will be all over you. Please get online. Now that we set the stage with our takeaway points, let's cover the most common questions related to a virtual assistant. Like any new technology, there's lots of questions and misconceptions about virtual assistants. The first question is just what exactly is a virtual assistant? Well, a virtual assistant, and you'll also hear me abbreviate this as VA. A virtual assistant is typically a person who works as your assistant. Now, we're certainly familiar with this concept of using an assistant in our office, but a virtual assistant is different. They don't work with you in the same location. They work in another facility. It could be in another city or even another country, and they plug into your business tools virtually through the internet. That's part of the reason why I was urging you to move your business online earlier. You communicate with VAs by talking to them live on the phone, through voicemail, or through email. It all depends on your particular situation and business needs. Virtual assistants are typically paid hourly, although there are some unique product-specific arrangements available that I'm going to tell you about. The next question is whether a VA is safe or not. You're going to be entrusting an outside individual or company with the keys to your business in some respects. Is there any liability or risk here? Well, working with anyone, virtual or otherwise, is not without risk, but I think a VA is a pretty safe bet. In preparation for this webinar, in fact, we did research to try to find any consistent problems or issues in working with a VA, and we didn't find any. Now, I wouldn't give out my social security number or banking details to a VA, but we know people who give out their credit cards and other personal data to allow their assistant to book travel or buy things online. It all depends on your particular situation, and you certainly need to do your homework to validate anyone's credibility. But again, this is no different than any other hire you might make. One of the reasons why I think using a VA is so compelling is that they can be very cost effective. We talked earlier about how you valued your time. I guarantee you that for most things, it's always going to be cheaper for you to delegate tasks to a virtual assistant than to do the work yourself. There are certainly exceptions, but as you'll see, you can literally hire a cloud-based assistant on an hourly basis for less than what I paid for a bottle of water in the airport last week. The trick is finding the right person, training them, and keeping them around. Okay, now let's explore whether a virtual assistant is right for you. To do that, I want to take a look at your workflow as it is now, and then see how it could change if you added a VA. In this basic diagram, you see a list of tasks on the left, and that's you in the middle, and on the right are your completed tasks. In this model, everything runs through you. You need to first review a task to figure out what needs to be done, and then there's the process of actually completing it. Once you're done, then you just continue to repeat this workflow in a never-ending cycle. This is how you get stuff done, and your mastery of this process dictates your productivity and ultimately your success. So what are some of the pros and cons of this model? Maybe you're doing a great job and there's no reason to change. Let's find out. Some of the pros include the following. Consistent quality. Since you're doing all this work yourself, you know the quality is going to be the same. Now, that's not to say that the quality is great, but at least it's consistent. You don't have to be concerned with any variations. Easy management. This is the lone wolf strategy, which makes the hierarchy simple. It's just you. So there's never any need to modify or complicate the process. It's easy to manage yourself, and you only have to be concerned with your productivity. Instant reprioritization. Have you ever been working away and then suddenly something comes up that causes you to instantly reprioritize everything? I'm sure we've all experienced that. In this model, you can move on a dime without affecting anyone but yourself. No cost. Since you're working on your own, you obviously don't incur any external costs here. Okay, so what are some of the downsides to working this way? Limited growth potential. Your resources are finite. No matter what you do, you aren't going to add more hours in the day or days in the week. You can only do so much. At some point, you will hit a wall that caps your productivity and ultimately your income. Ideally, you see this coming and implement whatever is necessary to ensure this doesn't happen. Lower customer service. Your customer service could be lower than someone with more resources. You probably won't have as much time to spend with clients or doing what could be truly beneficial to the growth of your business. Single point of failure. Of course, when it's just you, then your business has a single point of failure. If you go on vacation, get sick, or are otherwise unavailable, then nobody else is there to pick up the slack. You're vulnerable this way, especially if you're a sole practitioner. And lastly, stress. I think we've all tried to do it all. I know I have. Doing it all adds unavoidable stress. And if you're not someone who handles stress well, then you need to find a solution. We'll explore that model next. Okay, now we'll consider a model where your work is supplemented by the efforts of a virtual assistant. This could be someone who works with you full-time, part-time, or even on a project-by-project basis, regardless. Here's how things change. The list of tasks shown on the left is the same. In the middle, there's still you at the top, but now there's another party at the bottom. The idea is that certain tasks are delegated to a virtual assistant, which causes your completed tasks on the right to increase. You simply get more done. Now let's compare some of the pros and cons of this scenario. Now this is a super simple illustration, but it's meant to graphically depict how two heads can potentially be better than one, especially when one of those heads is handling all of your administrative tasks. But let's talk about some of the pros and the cons here to understand if this could be a good fit for you. Improves efficiency. The first benefit is that your efficiency improves, provided that you're able to spend more time on deal making, relationship building, and client service, and that everything is still humming back at the office. Then definitely you'll be more efficient. Focus on higher value tasks. If you do this right, then you're fundamentally able to focus on higher value tasks. That should generate a big return. Increases scale. Of course, this model increases your scale. Most of those capacity restrictions we talked about in the previous slide are gone when you get help. Bolster competency. I would also suggest that a VA can bolster your technological competency. Especially if you find someone who knows technology better than you, then they could probably use your cloud-based tools even better than you could. That's a really big deal. Now let's talk about some of the potential pitfalls with this model. Never be as reliable. The first is that a VA will probably never be as reliable as you. This is your business after all, and your clients, and nobody has the same vested interest in your success as you. But this sort of downside isn't unique to a virtual assistant. I'd suggest that it's a potential with anyone you hire. Finding and training a VA. Next is that you have to actually find someone to fill this role. You have to choose someone that you'll probably never meet in person. That takes effort and, of course, trust. And there's also training involved at both ends. You'll need to train your VA to indoctrinate them in your business, your technology tools, and your workflow. And they need to train you in how to work with them. Turnover is trouble. Your VA will not stick around forever, and turnover kills your productivity. The worst case is that you have to completely recreate the wheel with someone new. The best case is that you're working with a VA company or a service provider that can find a suitable successor for you. Either way, there may be productivity lapses. Communication challenges. Lastly, depending on who you choose, you may have language, cultural, and/or time zone challenges. You're going to find lots of VAs willing to work very inexpensively from foreign countries. Now, don't discount these, because I can personally attest to having had great success with folks in India and the Philippines. You need to hone your international skills to make it all work, though. Now let's talk about some of the ways that a virtual assistant can interface with your business and how you can put them to good use. They'll do this primarily through the online tools you use. Again, this whole discussion is predicated on the fact that your business is in the cloud. You can see how important this continues to be. We identified some of the most time-consuming but VA-friendly types of tasks and business applications that you'll find in our industry. So you're going to see specific examples of the types of tools you could or should be using and how a VA could get involved to supplement your business. Let's look first at email management. We get lots of email. If you're like most people, then you're spending a lot of time sifting through email every day, responding to the important messages, deferring some, and deleting many. Unfortunately, the busier you get, the worse your email response capability becomes. Here's how a VA could help with your email burden. To do this, I'm going to show you a Google Apps example since it's a great online email tool which we happen to use here at ClientLook. But this same example extends to any web-enabled email system. This is easy. In this example, you'd give your VA your login credentials. They'd log into your email account on your behalf as directed by you. They'd simply serve as a manual filter on your emails. They could respond to simple property information requests like you see here, and they could clean up junk. They could flag messages that seem important. The basic idea is that they do exactly what you do in some respects every day, except that they don't have the same time constraints that you do. You'd still need to reply to those messages that require your personal attention, but I'll bet that a VA could handle a big chunk of your correspondence otherwise. This sort of real-time interaction would require that you choose a VA that is ideally in the same time zone as you and obviously works during your business day. Social media is another example of where a VA could prove really useful. We're all trying to increase our social media presence, whether it's on Twitter or LinkedIn or even a blog. If you don't get engaged, then you're unlikely to see any returns. And a perfect place to get started with this is a blog. A blog is free, it's easy to create, and it gives you a voice on the internet. All it requires is time. And more than anything, it allows people to find you. I'll use ClientLook as an example here. Now, this is the blog that you find on the ClientLook website. And in here we talk about new features for our CRM. We post recap of presentations like this one. So if you're someone searching for information on a commercial real estate CRM or strategies for using a virtual assistant, then you could potentially find our site. Now, we write our own content. But everything you see here could be written by a third party. In fact, there are blog writing companies that will do just that for you. So you could either find a VA capable of posting entries for you, or you could hire an outside company to do it. Now, remember earlier when I challenged you to think of all the things you could outsource? Well, don't restrict your thinking to just existing business processes. Also think about how you could be expanding your reach by adding things like a blog that you don't have the time or capability to produce currently. That's a perfect VA application. Another great use for a virtual assistant is with more traditional assistant tasks like creating reports, writing letters, or doing research. For example, you could have a VA create a client proposal using some existing template. They could create marketing flyers or even write things like offers or basic letters. The trick here is that they need access to the tools you use to create these things. Now, to demonstrate this a little bit, I'll show you how we use Google Apps for documents and spreadsheets here at ClientLook. Here we are in Google Apps. This is called Google Drive. This is how we share files in the cloud with everyone in our company. There's no server, no hardware requirements, and it's accessible anywhere, even through my mobile phone and my iPad. We can store files of any type here. Anyone with access to these folders can download the files, edit them, save and update, a new file. Other services like this include Dropbox, Box.net, and some others. At ClientLook, we also use Google Apps for file creation, though. We use a built-in word processor and built-in spreadsheet tools in Google instead of Word and Excel. This means that we not only have the file sharing capabilities, but also the file creation capabilities in the browser. And it also means that whoever we plug into this system, like a virtual assistant, has everything they need to create files too. It means that the VA you choose doesn't have to be limited to the people who have Microsoft Office or some other desktop tool that you might require. Remember that you're trying to do everything online. You could create templates for documents, presentations, reports, etc. in this framework and train your VA to use them to create new stuff. It's really Easy. And believe it or not, the world is more versed in online tools like Google Apps these days than Word. Now, another application along these lines is your market research. Tools like CoStar, LoopNet, Xceligent are obviously delivered online. If your VA was able to access your account, then they could run surveys for you, put together comp reports, research tenants, or whatever else your subscription offers. The requirement is that they are allowed to log in on your behalf from their location. So make sure and check with your service provider to ensure that this sort of work scenario is possible. If it's not, then consider making a change. The last example I'll show you is one that's near and dear to our hearts. It's actually the inspiration for this webinar. For a long time now, I've had the belief that the cloud would allow virtual assistants to become especially viable in our industry. Now, since everyone would be using online tools, I figured it seemed like the perfect fit, but I had no way to know for sure. So to test out this theory, I decided to use ClientLook CRM as a test case. As a CRM provider, we realize that using our service requires effort. You have to add contacts, log updates, run reports. These tasks take time. And these tasks are also exactly the type of thing that I suggested you outsource earlier. So rather than require people to find their own solution to this problem, we decided to pioneer one ourselves. About 6 months ago, we introduced a team of virtual assistants as a free service to annual ClientLook subscribers. You could use this team to do just about anything within ClientLook, but you didn't need to train these people since they were all ClientLook experts, and there would never be any turnover. That was all our responsibility. Their availability and your productivity was guaranteed. Now, I wasn't sure how the service would be received or how people might use it, though. But fast forward to today, where we now have thousands of people relying on this service, and I can tell you that the results have really surprised me. In fact, the introduction of our VA service has turned out to be one of the most highly regarded facets of our service. And here's how the typical ClientLook CRM subscriber uses the VA. The ClientLook Virtual Assistant team may be accessed in two ways, through voicemail and email. So you can leave a message with a list of tasks, or you can send an email. The kind of things that we see the VA team working on include adding updates from the road. So here's how this works. You come out of a meeting and you call the VA voicemail. You leave a message with something like, "Hi, this is Michael Griffin and I just met with George Adams. We discussed the project 500 Main Street and he's really interested in a tour next week. Link this update to that project and schedule a follow-up call for me next Tuesday." Meanwhile, you're on to the next appointment and nothing falls through the cracks. We see people add contacts by literally photographing business cards. We get people who come out of meetings and snap a photograph of a business card, and then they send these images onto the VA for manual entry in their database. We get requests to create new projects. We have people that I know calling from a dead sleep to run through a list of tasks that they want scheduled in their database for the next day. Our VAs even run the marketing reports for some of the most prominent projects nationwide. Your clients get better service and they never know the difference. Now, in our case, all this works so well because there's human intervention. It's not some fancy voice recognition or automated email transcribing service. A person listens to each voicemail and reads each email. Your account is accessed manually and information is entered by hand. It is decidedly low-tech, but it works. The bottom line is that because of the virtual assistant team, ClientLook CRM subscribers are more productive, are more mobile, and spend more time on high-value money-making tasks. I'd say that our experiment absolutely validates the viability of using a VA, and using the ClientLook VA has become the easiest way for people to jumpstart their strategy of outsourcing everything. The last thing we'll talk about is how you go about finding a virtual assistant. There are a few great ways that I can suggest, and they can all be done online. The first way is to find a VA by searching for people who have posted want ads. A great place to start is something like Craigslist. Let me show you an example in my local market. So here's Craigslist for Orange County. If I simply type up here virtual assistant and choose service as the option here and do a search, I find 70 people working as virtual assistants in my local marketplace. So certainly you'd have to vet each one of these and contact them and verify their credibility. But this is a big jump towards finding people, even locally, that provide the kind of service you're looking for. The next way is to post an ad of your own. And a great place to start is a site called Elance. And I ran a little experiment here as an example that I'll show you. 2 or 3 days ago, I posted an ad in Elance. Elance is a site that allows you to post free job ads for positions like a virtual assistant. People respond to your ad with their work history and their references, etc. Elance makes money by taking a percentage of whatever you pay to the contractor. And this site is great because it has literally millions of people who monitor the site for jobs. So you get access to this huge variety of people. But here's what I did. I posted an ad for virtual assistant for commercial real estate broker. And you see some of the details here. I need a qualified, reliable, tech-savvy individual who can work West Coast hours. I subscribe to a variety of cloud-based services for email, word processing, social media, and research, and my VA would need to access these services. Now, notice in here that I put about 20 hours a week was the workload, and that the hourly rate I was interested in paying was $10 an hour or less. Now, I can tell you within 24 hours, I had about 10 responses. And so far, it's been about 48 hours. I've got 17 responses in total. So as you scroll down the list here, you see the variety of people. And you click into each one of these. But you can see, for example, this person's at $4.38 an hour. So provided that these are quality people, provided you can work with them and that you've verified their credibility, this is very cost effective. And sites like Elance provide you a great way to connect with the world of virtual assistant opportunities. Now, the last way to find a virtual assistant is simply to use a product that provides one. So you saw how we do that with ClientLook CRM. If you're an annual subscriber to our service, you get unlimited access to a team of VAs to help you with our product at no cost. There's a site called RE Back Office that provides outsourced marketing services, lease abstraction, and financial modeling on a fee basis. REIWise, the real estate analysis tool, is another example. They have a concierge service where they'll help create marketing materials for you at some fixed cost. Whether you elect to use a virtual assistant through something like ClientLook CRM, or by finding and training your own assistant, please try to keep in mind the 3 main points we started with today. Try to find the optimal way to invest your limited time and energy so that you can maximize your productivity. Discover your personal highest and best use. Once you've identified the things that are most likely to make you money, try to outsource everything else. Get off the desktop and into the cloud. The longer you wait, the bigger hole you dig. Make the move now. With that said, I hope you enjoyed the presentation. We want to hear from you, so feel free to provide any feedback by writing to us at webinar@clientlook.com. A lot of the focus today was shaped by input from people just like you. I'm Michael Griffin, and I want to thank you for attending today. I wish you the best and good luck in the cloud.